What are the pros and cons of being a consultant? You've probably heard it said, become a consultant, work from anywhere, charge what you're worth, live on your terms. This all sounds amazing until you're buried in Zoom calls, working nights, working weekends, and wondering how you can break out of this cycle over and over and over. In this video, I'm going to break down the real pros and cons of consulting. If you do it wrong, you can trap yourself. But if you do it right, you can build a business that creates impact and income at the same time. Let's dive right in. So let's take a hard look at what people love and often what they struggle with when it comes to consulting. I'm going to walk you through both lists, the pros and the cons, and I'll share with you my perspective. I've been providing consulting for 15 years, and I've helped many consultants build 7- and 8-figure revenue streams in their businesses. So I'm going to share with you their perspectives as well. Let's start with the pros. So number one is time flexibility. So the idea is that you can set your own hours, you can work when you want, you can travel and have that freedom of time. Well, the day that you open your doors as a consultant, this is not true. This is not true because you have to build a business. And the day that you open your business, you wear a lot of hats. To make this time flexibility a reality, you have to build a real business. You can't just be a self-employed consultant, but you have to have a real business. And a real business has systems built in, and a team built in, and tools built in, and automations built in. So if you really build a consulting business, not just self-employed, then this is true. You can have time flexibility. So number two is control over clients. You can choose who you work with, and you can turn down bad fits. Because in the beginning, you have to figure out who your dream clients are. And you don't know that yet. You can imagine them, but it's not reality until you actually start providing consulting. And you're going to be surprised. Okay, this is just a guaranteed thing. But let's say you provide consulting to 10 different clients. There's going to be some that you really enjoy working with, and there's some that you don't. Some that your phone calls or Zoom calls are more drudgery, and you have to figure out the difference. I recommend that you work really hard to figure out the difference. What industries are these businesses in, or what type of people or demographics or success level, or what industries are they working in? Just figure it out and be honest with yourself of why you enjoy working with some and why not others. So once you figure that out, then it truly is true. You can cater your business to focus on the types of clients that you love working with. Now, I do recommend right from the get-go, set some standards. Like I have a family values company, right? So if there's somebody that comes to me and they're promoting a brand of alcohol or wine or something like that. This isn't out of judgment, but it's just out of my own principle. We don't service those type of businesses. Or even things that I don't know a bunch about. I don't know a lot about CBD, but I'm just not going to pursue it because it has to do with marijuana. Or I'm certainly not going to promote things that relate to adult or mature content that is totally immature. Let's move on to the third one. So expert positioning. You get to be seen as the expert instead of the implementer. I guess I have to understand what that means. So that's a pro of consulting. You're seen as the authority. So I guess it's the image. I don't necessarily look at it that way. I mean, I think that everyone has expertise, right? So we all have unique experiences. I've got a lot of expertise and wisdom in the world of YouTube lead generation because I've spent 12 years focusing on it, and I've helped so many people, right? I've got a track record of success. And so I don't position myself as an expert there so that I can have the accolades, but it's because that's where I can really best serve people. This is what I know. So look at yourself in the mirror. What are your experiences? What are your expertise? Why would people hire you as a consultant? And so this is the way that you get to best serve the world and make the greatest impact because you actually know what you're talking about and you can really help people. Okay, the next pro, I think this is number 4, is high margins. Consulting can command high premium pricing with low overhead. Okay, low overhead, yeah, I can see that if what you do is 100% consulting. A lot of businesses like my own actually have services. So there's team members, there's equipment, there are costs of delivery, and consulting is a part of it. The way that I look at it is that I don't recommend that you consult simply just to provide advice. but to actually help people get results. So to help people get results, you're going to need to take them by the hand and lead them step by step. And advice might do that, but advice with systems and tools and resources and probably services are going to be the most effective way of helping people actually get that result. If I rewind back many years ago when I first discovered my YouTube strategy, I would offer coaching and I would have weekly calls with people to provide coaching. That didn't last very long because they weren't really implementing what I taught. So then I started doing retreats. I'd put on a 3-day cabin retreat. It was great. We had great food. We had good friendships, and we had a lot of training. By the end of day 3, people would tell me, this was amazing. Be sure to let me know when the next retreat is. So you'd think that that's positive feedback, but I would look at what they would implement after the retreat. Like it must have just been like, oh, I get to go on a retreat that's a business expense and I'm going to learn some great stuff. But then they get back into the real world of life and they don't implement it. Like I don't have fulfillment in that. I don't just want to train and make people feel good. I actually want to move the needle. I want to help people get results. So I created a service where I could take people by the hand and help them get results. I'm not just creating videos for them, but I'm helping them generate leads and generate more revenue in their business. Okay, so the point I had to remind myself, we're talking about high margins. The reason that we can charge more for our services is because we're helping people get really valuable results. Now, we got to explore the word margin, because if my expenses and my income are right here and the cost of my services are right here, then there's zero margin, right? So a margin is how much profit is on top. Now, if I'm really good at building systems and leveraging my time and hiring team to run those systems, then it is likely that the margins are quite significant. So you can have a profitable business. All right, so the next pro of being a consultant, it says no employees required. Many consultants avoid the complexity of managing a team. Yeah, I'm going to disagree with that one. I think that as a consultant, you can only be stretched so far. I mean, I think that if you've got the calling and the purpose to consult other people, that there are billions of people on this earth and a large percentage of them need your help. So if you don't build a team, you're not going to be able to help very many people. All right, the next pro is that there's a quick path to revenue. It's one of the fastest ways to monetize your expertise. Okay, it's not one of the fastest ways to build a business, but yeah, it's one of the greatest ways to monetize your expertise. You can create courses, you can create membership programs. One-on-one coaching or consulting is probably the first step that you should take. And so the challenge is if you don't have a portfolio or case studies or a track record of success. So the fastest way to get that is to offer consulting to someone for free in exchange for a testimonial. Or perhaps, hey, if I get you a result, will you share that result with me, right? Become partners on something. But once you have a single case study, then you can showcase that and show it to people, and they will pay you for your consulting. It says a low barrier to entry. You don't need a lot of infrastructure to get started. Well, you do need a lot of wisdom and experience. And so, I mean, you're going to need a lot of that. That's way harder than building a typical business where you just need a website or you just need to buy a retail location. Like I would say that's a lot easier in terms of a barrier to entry. To become a consultant, well, you have to be an expert for people to hire. If you're going to consult a business on their hiring processes, you've had to have years in the trenches and be successful at reforming hiring processes. Or if you're going to consult on marketing, you better be a marketing expert. And this isn't book wisdom, like you haven't just read some marketing textbooks, but you've gone out there and you've helped your business be successful and you've helped other businesses be successful with their marketing. So I don't think I would describe it as a low barrier of entry. Okay, personal brand growth, clients often elevate you publicly. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you will get referrals, but I feel that's lame. Freedom from bureaucracy. You aren't bogged down by office politics or internal red tape. I would say that's the truth of a real business owner. So that's not unique to consulting. It's like you can either be an employee and be a part of some other system or bureaucracy, or you can start your own company, but that's not unique to consulting. Okay, so now let's look at the cons of being a consultant. Client dependency. If you lose one client, it can significantly hurt your income. Well, certainly, especially if you haven't really created a business. If you've got 4 different clients, each of them paying you, say, $2,500 a month, that can be a great, reliable income. But if one client goes away and your income drops down to $7,500 a month, In that case, you're really self-employed because you need to put on the sales hat again to find one more person to fill in that vacancy. But a real business has all those things running at the same time, from their marketing, from their sales to their fulfillment. And you're going to be handling a lot more clients than just 4 to where one person would really impact your income that much. All right, the next one, it says feast or famine cycles. Income can be inconsistent without a lead generation system. Well, definitely. I mean, I've had my business 15 years, and I would say the first 9.5 were an up and down roller coaster financially. So there were months where I would bring in $10,000 or $20,000 in a month and feel like, wow, this is great. But then in the month following, I make 0. And the month after that, I make 0. So it averages out, and it really can be feast or famine. I would say that this is reality. It has nothing to do with consulting specifically. This has to do with entrepreneurship. This one I have to think about. It says time for money trap. You only earn when you're actively working. Okay, I get it. So you're working in your business, not necessarily working on your business. I think if you're a consultant and you're only working in your business, that would be a terrible con. I think that you do need to really be a business owner and take some time to work on your business, build systems, build a team. So this con doesn't necessarily have to apply. Scalability challenges. It's hard to grow beyond yourself without shifting your model. Well, yeah, then shift your model. Okay, let's keep going. No built-in community. You often work alone without a team culture or peer support. I can see that. I mean, that's true of just entrepreneurship in general. So going back over 15 years ago, and for 6 years prior to that, I worked for a company called World Financial Group. Now, I didn't admit it at the time, but it's a multi-level marketing company. I got my insurance license. I got my securities license. I could help people with originating loans. I could help people with mutual funds. I could help people with insurance policies. And I taught a lot of financial advice. Now, the reason I tell you that is there was a great community. My branch manager, my team was great. We would go on cruises together. We would have annual conventions. And there were awards and recognition. And I loved that. So when I stepped away from that back in 2010 and I created my own business, I had a lot more control. I was a lot more successful financially, but I really missed the recognition. I really missed the community. And so I think that that's true of entrepreneurship. I think a lot of these cons would apply to lots of different types of businesses, not just consulting, but hopefully that gives you a perspective. Okay, so the next one is sales pressure. You're always prospecting, selling, or reselling your value. If you are good at sales or you can learn sales, then you'll be successful in business. If not, if you're afraid of it, you're going to stay self-employed the rest of your life. That's not a specific thing to consulting either. Let's see if any of the rest of these. There's burnout risk. You may be solving other people's problems more than building your own vision. I just think that you don't have the right type of business built. Limited exit strategy. Most consulting businesses aren't sellable or transferable. Okay, so that would be because you build the business around yourself. And so you're the face of the brand. You're the face of the company. How do you sell that? I've seen it done many times. I've helped many clients build amazing brands built around themselves. They're the expert on the YouTube channel. And so their YouTube channel brings in a lot of leads from YouTube, Google, and ChatGPT. But I've also seen that easily transferable. You just have to do it right. You have to build systems. Let me give you a real example. So in the beginning of when I started working with Noelle, it wasn't in the beginning of business for her. In fact, she had like 6 different businesses. One of them in the previous year had brought in $1 million selling coaching to people who wanted to learn Airbnb real estate. She did all of her advertising through Facebook, and she generated leads selling a $5,000 coaching program where at the end of 6 months, people would have positive cash flow with a vacation rental property. Okay, so then she hired me, and I really helped her grow to a $6 million revenue just from YouTube. Now, during this first year, she had a full schedule. She was doing as many as 10 strategy sessions or 10 Zoom calls in a single day, and she had a 2.5-month waiting list. Then she had a big spike on her channel where the leads quadrupled, and she already had a 2.5-month waiting list. So what's she supposed to do? There's a couple steps. She reached out to another company that could help her do these strategy sessions, but eventually she transitioned to some of her students who became coaches. She would have a student go through her program, and they would have a property that was positive cash flowing. So then they would be hired by Noelle to take these strategy session calls, and they would say, Yeah, I went through Noelle's program. This is where I'm at. I'm positive cash flowing. So they knew how to talk the talk. They actually had walked the walk, and Noelle didn't have to be on that call. So it was better than a rock star salesperson. Noelle tried hiring a salesperson, but it just didn't work. But these people that weren't rock star salespeople, they would just tell of their experience, and so people would buy. Now, Noelle was able to really scale back. So instead of having a completely full schedule, she now had lifestyle where she would put in like 1 day of work per week. And yet her revenue grew to about $6 million per year. So exit strategy, I mean, Noelle doesn't want to sell her business. She doesn't want to exit. There would be ways of doing that. But anyway, client control. Clients can micromanage, delay timelines, or change scope unexpectedly. I would say no. I would just say that relates to poor systems, poor expectations. And the last con it says of consulting is skill plateaus. You risk becoming stagnant if you don't invest in your own learning. So personally, I feel like consulting is one of the most rewarding business models, but I'm talking about a consulting business, not being self-employed as a consultant. So if you're serious about growing a consulting business, then you need to watch the next episode. I'll link to it right there. It's called How to Grow a Consulting Business. Not only will I talk about the systems so that you can be a true business owner and have lifestyle, but I'll show you how to attract the right type of clients. So that people that are searching for you but don't know that you exist, so that they can find you and see you as the go-to authority in your space. So again, that episode is called How to Grow a Consulting Business. I'll see you there.